He said, something happened to us there and you can't take it back. She tried to, because she was rejected, she tried to go back to her old mode of behavior.
They made us laugh through the horror of war, winning our hearts in one of television's most beloved shows, MASH. But while the cameras rolled on smiles and heroics, something much darker was building behind the scenes. Why did some of the show's biggest stars suddenly vanish? Why did Loretta Swit, the heart of the cast, stay silent for so long? Now, just days before her passing at age 87, she finally opened up, and what she revealed changed everything we thought we knew. From quiet betrayals to missed opportunities and unspoken resentment, this is the real story of what tore the cast apart, even as they made television history together. And it all begins with one confession. MASH, the show that changed everything. If you were around during the 1970s and early 80s, you probably remember how MASH wasn't just another TV show. It had this rare magic. It could have you laughing out loud one minute and then completely wreck your heart the next. Set during the Korean War, but airing during the tense Vietnam era, MASH took on big emotional topics and made them feel personal. It wasn't about battles and explosions, it was about the people caught in between. The series originally aired on CBS from September 17, 1972, until February 28, 1983. That's 11 seasons of pure brilliance. It was inspired by the 1970 film MASH, which itself came from the 1968 novel MASH, a novel about 3 Army doctors by Richard Hooker, the pen name of real-life surgeon H. Richard Hornberger. The story followed a group of doctors and staff stationed at a mobile Army surgical hospital in Uijeongbu, South Korea, showing how they used humor and friendship to cope with the chaos of war. The original cast was unforgettable. Alan Alda became the heart of the show as the quick-witted and deeply human Hawkeye Pierce. Wayne Rogers brought charm as Trapper John, while Loretta Swit gave depth and complexity to Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, a woman often underestimated but never outmatched. McLean Stevenson played the affable Colonel Henry Blake, and Gary Berghoff gave us Radar O'Reilly, the lovable clerk who somehow always knew what was coming before it happened. Larry Linville was perfectly cast as the frustrating Frank Burns, and Jamie Farr's Klinger, desperate to get discharged by dressing in women's clothes, added comic relief with unexpected heart. William Christopher gave soul to Father Mulcahy, the camp's quiet but wise chaplain. As time passed, cast changes began shaking things up. Wayne Rogers left, reportedly due to creative conflicts, and Mike Farrell joined as B.J. Honeycutt, another skilled surgeon, but with a gentler, more grounded energy. When McLean Stevenson left, wanting to explore more leading roles, Harry Morgan stepped in as Colonel Potter, bringing a firm but fatherly presence. Larry Linville's departure opened the door for David Ogden Stiers as Charles Winchester, a character who brought both sophistication and surprising vulnerability. And when Radar left, Klinger stepped up as the new company clerk. Despite all the changes, the heart of MASH stayed strong. Alan Alda, who not only starred but also wrote and directed many episodes, made sure the emotional depth never faded. And let's not forget, some episodes were based on real interviews with Korean War doctors, which gave the show a raw authenticity. By the time its final episode aired in 1983, titled Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, it broke records. Over 100 million people tuned in, making it the most-watched television episode in American history at the time. However, behind the scenes, not everything was perfect. That's where Loretta Swit comes in, and before her health declined, she opened up about what was really going on, and the real reasons these beloved cast members had to say goodbye. But before we get into that, How did Loretta Swit go from working secretary to one of TV's most iconic women in uniform? The real Loretta Swit. Before Hot Lips, she was already a fighter. Before the MASH stage lights, before the laughter and drama, before she became the unforgettable Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, Loretta Swit had already lived a story worth telling. Born on November 4, 1937, in Passaic, New Jersey, Loretta was raised in a Polish-American household where grit and hard work were the family values. Her parents, Lester and Nellie Swit, weren't in showbiz, far from it. Her dad was a salesman and part-time upholsterer. Her mom ran the house and held the family together. Loretta's older brother, Robert, was 6 years her senior, and she looked up to him like any younger sibling would. Even as a child, Loretta had a natural spark. She joined the Girl Scouts through Holy Rosary Catholic Church, attended Pope Pius XII High School, and by her teenage years, she had already found her voice. She became a cheerleader, acted in school plays, and even co-captained the girls' basketball team. Quiet? Not anymore. After graduating in 1955, she attended the Catherine Gibbs School in Montclair, one of the top secretarial schools at the time, and graduated in 1957. She worked as a stenographer, later as a secretary to socialite Elsa Maxwell, and even handled diplomatic tasks as secretary to the Ghanaian ambassador at the United Nations. But deep down, Loretta wasn't meant for filing cabinets and typewriters. She was taking secret dance lessons with a Rockette friend, studying acting with Jean Frankel in New York, and sharpening her voice at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. She was preparing herself quietly, persistently, for something much bigger. By the early 1960s, she was already earning respect in the theater world. From off-Broadway classics like An Enemy of the People to more daring productions like The Balcony, she showed up, worked hard, and stood out. She toured with hit plays like Any Wednesday and performed alongside legends like Don Rickles and Ernest Borgnine in The Odd Couple. By 1975, she was lighting up Broadway in Same Time Next Year and later took on The Mystery of Edwin Drood and Mame in Las Vegas. Even into the 2000s, Loretta was still performing. She starred in one-woman shows like Shirley Valentine and appeared in plays such as Amorous Crossing and 6 Dance Lessons in 6 Weeks. Loretta never stopped working because performing wasn't just her job, it was who she was. Then, in 1969, Loretta made her move to Hollywood. Guest roles started coming in Hawaii Five-0, Gunsmoke, Mission Impossible, and Mannix. She was proving herself on screen, one episode at a time. What no one knew then was that she was just one role away from television immortality. How Loretta Swit made Hot Lips a legend. When Loretta Swit stepped onto the set of MASH, everything changed. She wasn't just playing a role, she was about to make television history. As Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, Loretta brought to life a woman who was strong, complex, and, at times, completely misunderstood. The character had originally been played by Sally Kellerman in the 1970 film, but when the show launched later that same year, Loretta took over. And she didn't just fill those shoes, she redefined the role. In the early seasons, Margaret was stiff, no-nonsense, and fiercely loyal to military rules. Her romantic entanglement with the uptight Frank Burns, played by Larry Linville, often led to some of the show's cringiest but oddly hilarious moments. Their relationship was messy, over the top, and anything but healthy. But that was part of the charm. As the seasons went on, both the character and the actress evolved. Margaret stopped being the punchline. She married a lieutenant colonel, though the marriage didn't last. And for the first time, viewers saw a softer, more vulnerable side of her. She developed meaningful friendships with her fellow staff members and started connecting with the local Korean people. These moments of empathy gave Margaret real depth and helped transform MASH from just a clever war comedy into something richer, with heart and humanity. Loretta's impact on the show was huge. She was one of only 4 actors, along with Alan Alda, Jamie Farr, and William Christopher, who stayed through all 11 seasons. Out of 256 episodes, Loretta appeared in all but 11. And when the final episode aired in 1983, she was there, just as she had been from the very beginning. Her performance didn't go unnoticed. Loretta earned 2 Emmy Awards for her work. When asked about episodes that meant the most to her, she often pointed to hot lips and empty arms, Margaret's engagement, and the nurses. All stories that peeled back the layers of Margaret and showed just how much she had grown. Off-screen, Loretta built lasting friendships too. She was especially close to Harry Morgan, who played Colonel Potter. After the show ended, they even became neighbors and stayed close until his passing in 2011. She also remained connected with Alan Alda and his family, including his wife and kids. Loretta Swit didn't just play a role. She gave heart and humanity to a woman the world almost dismissed. But just as the show was making history, things behind the scenes were shifting, and not all the goodbyes were peaceful. The MASH tension they didn't show you. On screen, MASH looked like the perfect mix of laughs, heart, and smart writing. But behind the scenes, things weren't always so smooth. Just like any long-running show with a big cast and strong personalities, friction started building over time, and it got messy. Alan Alda, who played Hawkeye Pierce, was without a doubt the face of the show. And not just on screen. He wrote and directed dozens of episodes, shaping the tone and direction of MASH more than anyone else. For fans, that might have seemed like a great thing. After all, Alda's humor and emotional intelligence helped make the series what it was. But here's the catch. As Alda's influence grew, others felt squeezed out. The show had started as an ensemble, but it slowly began to feel more like the Hawkeye show. That didn't sit well with everyone, especially actors like Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper John, and McLean Stevenson, who played the lovable Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake. Both of them left the series by the mid-1970s. Wayne Rogers was especially candid later on. He said the show wasn't what he signed up for. What was supposed to be a team dynamic started feeling one-sided. The writing focused more and more on Hawkeye's political rants and emotional arcs, while Trapper faded into the background. Rogers even joked that the show had become The Adventures of Hawkeye Pierce, and not in a flattering way. Writers felt the strain too. Ken Levine, one of the show's writers, once admitted they wrote an episode set in freezing temperatures just so the actors would be too cold and uncomfortable to push back on script changes. He laughed about it in hindsight, but that story says a lot about the behind-the-scenes power struggle. And right in the middle of it all, Loretta Swit. She wasn't just acting, she was managing egos, keeping peace, and stepping in when tensions got high. In interviews, she hinted that filming could be emotionally draining, and not because of the script. She never spilled all the details, but it was clear. Keeping the cast united was sometimes her toughest role. Still, the biggest point of tension revolved around one man, Alan Alda, and things would come to a boiling point soon. The Alan Alda effect. Let's be real. Alan Alda didn't just star in MASH. He gradually became its compass. He started off as just another member of the ensemble when MASH debuted in 1972. But by the late 1970s, he was calling many of the creative shots, writing, directing, and even serving unofficially as a producer and script consultant. By the end of the series, Alda had written 19 episodes, directed 32, and left a very distinct fingerprint on how MASH evolved. Under his influence, the show moved away from slapstick antics and leaned into serious topics: war trauma, gender dynamics, morality, and even racial tensions. It was no longer just a military comedy. It was a thoughtful, sometimes gut-wrenching drama with punchlines. And audiences loved it. Critics did too. MASH became one of the most critically praised shows on television, winning multiple Emmy Awards and landing sky-high ratings. But not everyone backstage was thrilled with the direction. While Allen's leadership brought heart and purpose, it also shifted the spotlight hard. What was once a true ensemble show began revolving almost entirely around Hawkeye Pierce. That rubbed a few cast members the wrong way. Wayne Rogers had already left, and McLean Stevenson followed not long after. Others didn't always say it out loud, but there was a growing sense that MASH was slowly becoming Hawkeye and Friends. Loretta Swit, however, remained one of Alda's closest allies. She always spoke warmly of him, calling him brilliant, kind, and deeply generous behind the scenes. Their bond lasted long after the series ended. To her, Allen wasn't just a co-star, he was a lifelong friend. But even Loretta, loyal as she was, eventually admitted something surprising. As the years went by and her health declined, she opened up about the pressure, the strain, and the truth about what it was really like during those final seasons. What Loretta finally admitted before her death at age 87. To fans, Loretta Swit was always Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, the no-nonsense army nurse who held her own in a sea of men. But behind that sharp uniform and iconic name was an actress quietly navigating real tension, both in front of the camera and behind it. In her later years, Loretta got more candid about what really went down on MASH. She admitted that the set wasn't always as warm as fans imagined. Being one of the few women in the cast, she often felt isolated. She had to fight, not in a dramatic way, but with quiet persistence, for her character to be taken seriously. In the early seasons, Margaret was portrayed as over-the-top, bossy, romantically desperate, and the constant butt of jokes. She was basically defined by her affair with Frank Burns and by being tricked by Hawkeye and Trapper. Loretta hated that. She knew there was more to Margaret than just being the comic relief. When Larry Linville, who played Frank Burns, left the show in the mid-70s, that opened a door. Loretta worked closely with the producers to give Margaret more dimension, showing her leadership, vulnerability, and strength. Executive producer Burt Metcalf backed her up, later saying the entire team knew it was time for Houlihan to become a real person, not a punchline. As for why so many cast members left, Loretta didn't sugarcoat anything. She said Wayne Rogers, Trapper John, had every right to walk away. He felt boxed in and underused. She once said he wasn't being exploited fully, and he knew it. He had signed up for a true ensemble, but the spotlight kept narrowing toward Hawkeye. McLean Stevenson, Henry Blake, also left after just 3 seasons. According to Loretta, he told her directly, "I know I'll never be in anything as good as this again, but I simply have to try." He wanted to lead something, not just support someone else's story. Larry Linville walked away after 5 seasons, feeling there was nowhere else to take Frank Burns without turning him into a parody. Gary Berghoff, beloved as Radar, exited after 8 seasons, emotionally worn out and convinced his character had run its course. Loretta stayed, but staying came with its own sacrifices. Mike Farrell and Harry Morgan both later revealed that Loretta often felt left out, especially during the last several years when scripts focused less on Margaret. Harry even suggested that being overlooked so often may have left her feeling bitter. One missed opportunity that hurt deeply. She was considered for the role of Detective Christine Cagney on Cagney and Lacey, but MASH producers wouldn't release her from her contract. She never made a scene about it, but it stung, and it stayed with her. Even with the stress, Loretta never truly thought about quitting. She believed in the work, in the message, and in the audience that watched every week. But later in life, when asked why others left, she didn't shy away from the truth. MASH was brilliant, but it was also complicated. She loved the show, but she didn't pretend it was perfect. And as for her life away from the cameras, Loretta Swit's final years were spent quietly, but not without purpose. And when the end came, she left more than just a role behind. She left a legacy. Loretta Swit's personal life and death. Loretta Swit lived a life full of passion, both in and out of the limelight. While viewers loved her for her quick wit and fiery personality on TV, her own life was every bit as fascinating, filled with creativity, love, heartache, and fierce activism. Years ago, Loretta dated singer Bill Hudson. Yes, the very same Bill Hudson who was briefly married to Goldie Hawn and fathered Kate Hudson. But that was a one-day-only affair in the gossip columns. In 1983, she wed actor Dennis Holohan, and MASH fans may even know him. Holohan guest-starred in a single episode as Per Johansson, a Swedish diplomat with a certain flirtation toward Swit's character. Real life wasn't quite as scripted, though, and after 12 years of marriage, the couple split up in 1995. In addition to her career as an actress, Loretta was a passionate animal lover and not afraid to speak out about it. She was an outspoken animal rights activist long before such causes were the norm in Hollywood. Throughout her life, she championed many efforts to save animals and spoke out against industry and general cruelty. She went vegetarian early in life and pushed it further by going vegan in 1981, well ahead of her time. For Loretta, it wasn't a fad. It was a deeply held principle about kindness and compassion. She also had a creative side of her own that went far beyond the camera. Loretta was devoted to needlepoint, a peaceful, contemplative pastime that brought her happiness. She even authored a book titled A Needlepoint Scrapbook, in which she presented her patterns and personal thoughts. It was another glimpse into her character, considerate, calm, and dedicated to the small things. Loretta Swit died on May 30, 2025, at the age of 87, in her New York City home. Even though she's no longer here, her legacy endures in the hearts of fans, in her activism for animal welfare, and in Margaret Houlihan, a role she brought to life with substance, passion, and compassion. Thanks for watching, fam. If you found this video interesting, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Also, check out the next video that pops up now to discover more thrilling stories.